Git NTV. Welcome to this live talk show, proudly brought to you by Strong Minds, as we get to commemorate World Mental Health Day. Now, as we navigate a world continually evolving and adapting to new challenges, the significance of mental health and depression has never been more evident. Now, mental health is a fundamental component of overall well-being, and every year on the 10th of October, Uganda joins the rest of the world to mark this day, which seeks to recognize the importance of mental health not being just a matter of personal well-being, but also a societal concern. Now, organizations like Strong Minds Uganda have been at the helm of improving mental health of women and adolescents in Africa, with the focus and emphasis on depression, which stems from various factors, as of course we shall be discussing this afternoon. Now, this year's Mental Health Day theme is mental health is a universal right. And now this comes at a time when mental health cases and issues on the rise in the country, with an estimated 14 million Ugandans suffering from a form of mental disorder. Now, these were recorded in 2019 by the Ministry of Health, which means the numbers could have doubled, of course, with the situations like COVID-19, rising cost of living, and so many other factors that we shall be looking at this afternoon. Now, it is on this background that we ask what could be done to mitigate the rising cases of mental health in the country, as well as the government's intervention in this. Now, you can join the conversation live on Facebook and YouTube as we commemorate World Mental Health Day, and also follow the hashtag #MyMentalHealthMyRight. I am Mildred Pedun, and welcome once again. Now, to join me in this discussion, we do have Mr. Vincent Mujune, the Acting Country Director of Strong Minds Uganda. Good afternoon, sir, and thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, Mildred, and good afternoon to the viewers.
Also joining the discussion is Dr. Kenneth Kalani, Senior Medical Officer in the Mental Health Division from the Ministry of Health. Good afternoon, Dr. Kenneth, and thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, Mildred, and thank you to the viewers also for tuning in and joining into the discussion.
Also, we will be joined by Honorable Timothy Batwa, a Member of Parliament of Jinja West. He is also the Chairperson of the Budget Committee of Parliament, as well as a member of the Parliamentary Health Forum, and he is also a Shadow Minister for Minister of Health. So he'll be joining us a bit later on. But for now, remember to follow the hashtag #MyMentalHealthMyRight, and we are live on Facebook and YouTube. Now, getting into the conversation, something that we all need to acquaint ourselves with, as well as the viewers, is what is mental health, and why is Mental Health Day an important day on the calendar? I'll start with you, Dr. Kenneth.
So to make it simple, WHO defines mental health as a state of well-being in which an individual is able to cope with day-to-day situational problems of life, work productively and fruitfully, manage relationships in a normal way, and contribute to his or her society. Now, with the simplicity of that definition, and this is where mental health usually comes in, that once someone talks about mental health, you may think it is something obscure. They are talking about the mind, they're talking about someone who's mentally ill, they're talking about that patient who's walking on the streets. It's not like that. So the way I've defined it, like, it's what we need on a daily, because life is very stressful. You need to cope with life, isn't it?
Yes.
You need to cope and remain productive and fruitful. Uganda is what it is because there are a couple of people who are working productively and fruitfully. You need to make meaningful relationships. You know, you need to contribute to your society by raising children, being responsible wherever you are. So that complex of all that ability of being able to do all that is what is coined mental health. In other words, if you look at that definition, everyone has mental health.
Okay.
Very simple. So we need it to run our day-to-day lives.
If someone makes a statement like that person has mental health issues, is it something right to say? What do they insinuate?
Yes, so that is good. And I like the way you put it. That out of mental health, so mental health falls in a spectrum. Okay? So on a daily, we have problems that we face. You know, I can have issues in my relationship.
Okay.
Yeah. You can lack basic needs, for example. You can disagree with someone, or maybe that you agreed with previously.
You're broke.
You can be
You're broke.
disappointed in one way or the other. You're broke. So all those things strain you. They cause pressures in you. Okay. So I would like to put it in this aspect that you are Mildred.
Yes.
But in you, Mildred, there are so many responsibilities that surround you. Okay. You're a mother on one side. You're a wife, you're a daughter somewhere, you're an employee here, you're also a boss elsewhere, you're a student. And this is one individual that has all these needs. Okay? Sometimes it's difficult for us to meet all these things. The resources we have, by resources I mean financial resources, I mean psychological resources, or even physical resources. You may be devastated and tired, and you cannot meet all the demands you have around. In so saying, you are getting stressed because you are being stretched beyond what you do. So in that way, your mental health or mental well-being is being checked. You get what I mean?
Yes.
And there we say you're beginning to have mental health issues. So mental health issues are because of the day-to-day problems that we face. Fortunately, many people are able to deal with these mental health issues. Some people cope with it in a good way, like you can go and talk to someone. Others may cope with it in a negative way, can take to alcohol. All those are coping strategies of the mental health issues that people have. Others may fight, others may quarrel, but others may be calm and handle things with stride, for example, or maybe talk about it or discuss. Those are the better ways of dealing with these things. So fortunately, many people deal with it. Unfortunately, some people do not. So if you have mental health issues for a long time, and you are not supported well, you can develop mental illness.
Okay.
You get the...
That is now clear.
Yeah.
Because I was going to ask again, is mental health mental illness? But you have clearly stated it. If it is not handled early enough, it could lead to mental illnesses that we shall be discussing. But I'd like to bring Vincent in. Why do you think the World Mental Health Day is an important day on the calendar?
Well, thank you, Mildred. I feel the World Mental Health Day is a very important day on the calendar because it is one day in the whole of the calendar of the year that is specifically put aside to commemorate and to advocate for the work that has to be done to promote our mental health as a people. We come from a strong notion of we can't say there is health without mental health. And so if you are concerned about your health and you're only concerned about your physical health, there is a lot more that you should be concerned about mental health, because mental health is part and parcel of your health and well-being. And so getting to this day and standing together as people of the whole globe to particularly commemorate this day using particular themes that we coin out for particular periods is quite helpful for us to, first of all, create awareness that the people should know about their mental health and that the people's mental well-being is an important part of how humanity should be.
Okay.
But we also look at the fact that there are decisions that we have to make as people, government, civil society. We have roles to play in making sure that the mental well-being of people is significantly promoted. I work for an organization called Strong Minds, and our business is to really scale the treatment of depression using very adaptable and low-cost interventions that can make it easier to reach the last person with a mental health problem like depression.
Okay.
And so the awareness, sensitizing them about the services available, and giving hope, and creating the voice that helps government to know that there are needs for us to prioritize mental health as a primary area for health.
Okay, thank you so much. I would like to bring Dr. Kenneth on this one. What he has already listed the depression as one of the mental health illnesses, but what other mental health illnesses or cases do we have? Examples?
Mental illnesses. So
It's key. It's mental illness. Cases is okay. Mental illnesses. We stick to mental illnesses.
Not mental health illnesses, or mental illnesses.
Mental illnesses.
Yeah.
So if I say mental health illnesses is something different. Mental illnesses.
Jumbled up.
Okay. So what are some of the examples of mental illnesses?
Yeah. So we cluster mental illnesses in different clusters. Okay. So, but to be quite simplistic, so that we can actually appreciate, mental illnesses, a cluster. It's an illness that affects the brain. So it's a group of illnesses that affect the brain. Okay. And because they affect the brain, they will affect the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we behave. Okay. They'll affect your feelings. So people with mental illnesses may feel in different ways. They may think indifferently, may think me suspicious, people following them, and so on and so forth, you know. And they may also behave differently. And behavior is what we commonly see amongst people with mental illnesses. And I want to put this categorically clear that mental illnesses is just like any other disease. It's just unfortunate because it affects the brain. And because it affects the brain, it's going to affect how we think, feel, and behave. Because our thoughts, our behaviors, and our feelings are a complex of our brain functioning. Okay? So it's like any other illness, like the disease of the liver, disease of the kidney. This one is of the brain. So that is mental illness.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes it is difficult for someone to self-diagnose and conclude and say, you know what, I'm actually having a mental illness. But also, still with you, from where you sit, what would be your overview of Uganda's mental health care system? Because as I had earlier stated, that the estimated number of 14 million Ugandans suffer from a form of a mental disorder, which is actually, those were from 2019, which means this could have actually have gone up. So what do you have to say about the mental health care system in Uganda?
Okay. So maybe quickly before I'll just wrap up my other discussion, and maybe talk about the common mental illnesses.
Yes.
So they're the commonest ones. So in our societies, we have illnesses like anxiety disorders, which comes with a lot of fear, excessive fear and worries, you know. There is depression, which is also a type of mental illness, the one Strong Minds focuses on. And that one comes with feelings of excessive sadness and loss of interest in things that make us or give us pleasure. Yeah, and then there are alcohol and substance use problems, what we would call addiction. And addiction is a mental illness.
It is a mental illness?
Yes. I want that to be a survey. Many people say, you know, I don't have a mental illness, I'm just an addict. But that is a mental illness. Because by the time you lose control over your drinking habits or whatever,
clearly there is something wrong with
there are chemical processes that have gone in your brain and they have been altered to ensure that you take those substances. So aside from those commonest ones, and those are the real commonest ones that we deal with, and if there is any type of illnesses that I want our viewers to pick up from this discussion, are those three: anxiety, depression, alcohol, substance
abuse.
Why? Because mental illnesses has been attached to the severe mental illnesses. The illnesses like psychosis or schizophrenia, where you see the people walking on the streets talking to themselves, probably neglecting their hygiene severely, sometimes threatening aggression, and so on and so forth. It has been attached to that kind of mental illness, but that contributes to just 0.5 to 1% of the cases. The majority of mental illnesses
these other ones.
Is anxiety and depression.
Depression.
And the difference is that anxiety and depression are what they call internalizing issues. The sufferers keep quiet and they'll not come up and say that, oh, this is how I feel. They sit down in their suffering, and psychological pain is worse than physical pain. So they go through that pain. Whereas the other ones, the severe ones, have externalizing features because the behavior is overt, and sometimes they engage in disruptive behaviors, that they disrupt the peace of the people living around, they will pick them up early and send them to Utabika or any other institution, and they get care.
So you say people slip into anxiety or depression because of not opening up about the situations they go through.
It might be part of the complex of the illness, that because I'm depressed, I do not engage. So it's one of the symptoms
Okay.
of depression. In another time, we could maybe be very explicit in the signs and symptoms of depression and other forms of illnesses. So there are the common types, and there are the other severe types, which is schizophrenia, bipolar affective disorder, and childhood mental illnesses, the ones that affect the elderly, forgetfulness. There are others coined as psychosis. All of them are put in there. Those ones I really don't want to focus on them so much. I want the message to pass that there are common mental disorders that affect people in our communities. It's anxiety, depression, alcohol, substance use problems.
Okay.
That said, I want to briefly highlight our health system. Mental health is recognized as a pillar of primary health care. What does that mean? That means that mental health should be provided at all levels of care. You know that in our healthcare system, we have the Health Center 1, which is the VHT basically at the village level. We have the Health Center 2, 3, 4, then we have the general hospitals in the districts. Then we have the regional referral hospitals and the national referral hospitals. Okay? So at the top, if I may start with, we have Utabika National Referral, which is a specialist hospital dedicated to taking care of persons with mental ill health at specialist level. Then the regional referral hospitals, we have 13 regional referral hospitals. The numbers have increased now. I think we have about 17. But the ones that are 13, they have a well-established and fully fledged mental health units. That means they offer specialist services at the regions. And then at the district level, we start to have, they run OPD services, They do not have the facilities to admit, but they can run outpatient services to treat patients or persons with mental ill health. But from that level onwards, level 3, 4, 2, 3, up to 1, services are integrated. So that means anyone, all the healthcare workers should recognize and treat mental illness as one of the services they provide at that level.
Okay.
And of course, we have partners as well that support us, like Strong Minds, and many other partners that we work with. They usually help us in delivering or fostering community mental health services. So they take services to people within the community, because we recognize that one of the barriers is stigma, but also access to mental health services. So they help us bridge that gap.
Okay.
They cover that. Yeah.
And so that is the point that I would like to bring Mr. Vincent Mojune, the acting country director of Strong Minds Uganda, that Dr. Kenneth has clearly highlighted that you partner with. I would like you to give us a brief of the work that Strong Minds Uganda is doing in regards to creating awareness of mental health.
Thank you, Mildred. Strong Minds work is basically built around treating depression, and I've mentioned that already. But it's difficult for you to have a firm discussion on depression without talking about mental health. And so wherever we are, we find ourselves in a deep conversation and creating awareness about mental health, and then diving deeper into what then depression is. And so Strong Minds work is to extend the treatment of depression using a talk therapy model, working basically through groups to make sure that people who are depressed are first of all assessed, and when they are found with symptoms of depression that are moderate or even severe, they are started on therapy.
What, just as you continue your discussion, if you could highlight the symptoms of depression in there.
So the primary ones Dr. Kalani has already alluded to are that when you are depressed, you lose interest in doing the things that you used to enjoy to do. If you used to enjoy hanging out with the boys or the girls, depending on who you are, when depression sets in, you begin to withdraw yourself. You begin to find that no more fun to do. and not because this is just a life choice you're making, but sometimes you cannot explain why it's no longer interesting as it used to do. So that's the cardinal symptom, that when somebody loses interest in doing those things that they used to enjoy to do, there is something to think about. But then the other thing is you begin to have extreme sadness, which in the most part is another critical area that you need to look at. Like, you find yourself in a state of sadness, like you don't feel at peace with yourself. Your mood is always not at its base for the most part.
You're feeling low all the time.
In fact, some people say the depressed person has their mood in their boots. Like, you literally prefer to be on your own, and you isolate yourself for the most part when you're depressed. There are other symptoms that accompany those that I have mentioned, like you begin to have sleeping problems. Some people begin to sleep a bit longer than they usually sleep, but there are also people who struggle to actually sleep or catch sleep, and you know you're through the night and you are struggling to find the first moment of sleep, and the night is going away. There are people who also have symptoms like that are related to how they eat. They develop a habit around eating too much or sometimes eating too little, and that comes through. In the workspace, the one that actually affects the most people is that you lose concentration. You become irritable. You're in a state where you have a high sense of self-doubt, and you cannot accomplish the tasks that you used to accomplish before with such finesse and confidence as you used to. And at the very worst, when depression is also being assessed using the patient health questionnaire, IT9, which is our standard assessment tool, we also check whether you have ideations of suicide, that you are at a point where you feel you're better off dead than being alive, and you're planning to end your life.
And this stems from prolonged depression?
So one of the things that is so important for this is that some of these symptoms that I've talked about can be a feeling or an experience of a week or a day, but when these symptoms are experienced for longer than 2 weeks, a period of 14 days, somebody has the basis for them to suspect or think that they could be depressed. If it's just been for a day or 2 or 3, that's within the continuum that Dr. Kalani was talking about, that mental health swings on a continuum. There are days which you would call my bad mental health days. And there are days you would say, this is my really good time. And naturally, we have been created with that innate ability to swing in the continuums of good and bad mental health, but we always find our equilibrium. So when you fail to swing back to equilibrium, there is a problem. And that's usually the basis for which people should seek help. People should seek care, that they may be helped.
So from where you sit, still with you, Strong Minds Uganda, you say you basically look at treating depression. Are there Ugandans that are actually walking up to Strong Minds, coming to you, seeking for help? Because I have interacted with different people, and just to get their perception on therapy. And some of them take it as a luxury. Some of them think it is something very costly, and yet it seems like it's the only way to actually get out of a situation like depression.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for asking that question. As far as depression is concerned, we actually see in the people that we assess for depression, we find that among women, about 2 in every 4 women we assess for depression, we find them depressed, which means that's a big number. And Strong Minds, since our inception in 2013, at this point, we have treated nearly 300,000 people. But that's too little compared to the burden that exists for the treatment of depression. If you look at the national numbers, it's 5%.
Yeah.
Depression takes 5% of the population. That's a big number of people who are not
It's
well.
an underestimate.
And the truth is that the government of Uganda has done a good job to work on the integration of mental health care in the primary health care system. And a lot of the medical solutions, like the treatment with medicine, has in many ways been extended to the community facilities that we are talking about. What seems to be not consistently available is actually the therapy. The part which helps you to work through the problem area that you're struggling with and helps you to build coping mechanisms that will help you walk out of your depression and begin to work again, or begin to function as a normal human being. And that's the part that we are emphasizing, that we would love a lot of emphasis also to be given to talk therapy as a solution that helps people to recover from depression. Remember, not all the people who are depressed necessarily need a pill to be well.
Yeah.
Some of them just need to be talked
They
through.
need to go
But
through
there is also that
talk therapy.
there is also that phobia of opening up.
Yes.
People fearing being judged. If, for instance, I am working at NTV and probably I'm going through something in my life and I want to reach out to Strong Minds, in my head I have this thing of, okay, they are seeing a TV person also has issues, so you find yourself coiling and failing to actually open up about certain situations that you know. But I would like us to get into the benefits, just to educate the public, the benefits of actually having treatment to some of these mental illnesses. I'll start with you, Dr. Kenneth.
Yeah, so generally, in order for us to distinguish between day-to-day problems and mental illnesses, there's an aspect of duration, because as he pointed out, that they are the same domains that are affected: sleep, appetite, mood, you know, social activity and physical health, and consumption of alcohol, other negative coping strategies. So they're both, for example, depression, anxiety, they are the same domains that are affected. So in order for us to distinguish that, there are three things that we put in perspective. One is the duration. That mental illnesses, those behaviors go on longer. The second one is they are pervasive. They happen in the same contexts, different contexts, so they are consistent. And then third and most important is that they affect the ability of somebody to work and perform in a day-to-day basis.
That's very important.
And that is where I want to drive to your question. Is that by identifying these mental illnesses and treating them early, okay, people are able to live life to their full potential, okay? Because depression and all the other mental illnesses come with many other symptoms, but part of it is either withdrawing or not knowing your potential, and so on and so forth. So you will know and seek help quickly, so you indulge. So we want to demonstrate to the world that mental illnesses can be treated. And the fact that I've had an episode of mental illness doesn't mean that my life is gone. You can be treated once identified, and then you go on to live life to your maximum potential. Okay, and that is one thing that we want. Two is that the society generally stigmatizes persons with mental illness because of the alternative explanations that are attached to mental illnesses and the symptoms. Remember, I told you that because it affects the brain, it affects the way people behave and interact with others.
Right.
So they call them names and so on and so forth. So in that way, the society also has designed strategies which is unintentional to deny these people rights, because they don't take them seriously. mentally ill, then they give them names, Kasiru Siru and all these things. Others say that they attach mental illnesses to curses, others attach mental illnesses to possession, evil spirits, and unfortunately that will dictate where you go to seek help. And many of our patients who receive them have sought help in these alternative places. Sometimes this causes harms to them, but it also causes inhumane and degrading treatments to these persons. So what we're trying to say, and in this mental health day, that one, mental illnesses can be treated once identified. Yeah. Two, we can treat persons with mental illnesses with dignity and respect. Three, everybody can get mental illness and no one is spared, as long as you have a brain. So what I always say is that treat that person the way you'd want to be treated if you get a mental illness.
Okay.
So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Yes, as we continue the conversation on World Mental Health Day, we are happy to be joined by Honorable Timothy Batwa, a Member of Parliament of Jinja West, Chairperson of the Budget Committee of Parliament, as well as a member of the Parliamentary Mental Health Forum and a Shadow Minister of Health. Now, sir, you have come at a time when we were talking about some of the forms of mental illness, and also we did distinguish between mental health and mental illness. And also, of course, a bit later on, we shall be talking about the World Mental Health Day, which we'll be highlighting a bit later on. But I would like to just pick your thoughts on why you think mental health, the Mental Health Day, is an important day on the calendar, as we just delve into the conversation more.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad joining you. Good afternoon, viewers. Well, when you look at the mental well-being, unlike the physical well-being, with mental well-being, it's largely invisible. You can tell somebody who is sick, you can tell somebody with a rash, but here you can't tell that this person is not doing well mentally. So what is important is actually to talk about it, such that almost everybody identifies himself with what you've explained, and all those that feel they have issues with their mental well-being, their mental health, they start seeking for help. So it is important that these discussions are held. It is important that people realize that actually they are not mentally healthy, and as such that they can get help. It will benefit the society, it will benefit the individuals, their productivity. So this is a very important agenda that the country should really put at the foremost.
I also would like to know from the August House what their stand is on mental health, because we've seen a number of times where there have been debates, especially on the regulation of alcohol, because as Dr. Kenneth was describing, he said one of the most common examples of mental illness is actually alcohol and substance abuse. And so we have seen some legislators actually suggesting to table the alcohol bill on the floor of Parliament, and so would like to know what is the Parliament's stand when it comes to mental health.
Yeah, well, mental health affects society, and members of Parliament are representatives of the people of Uganda and thus society. What we discuss in Parliament are issues affecting society. So the extent to which mental health is affecting society is the very extent we discuss issues around mental health. For us, it's about policies that will actually make mental health better. So in Parliament, what we've just had recently was the law regulating narcotics and psychotropic substances. This law, identified that there was some inadequacies in the existing law. We had a law on narcotics, but that specific law on narcotics was addressing narcotics in the perspective of products, products within the pharmacy, the finished products by various industries, but it wasn't looking at narcotics in the perspective of plants. So whereas the finished products were well regulated, the plants were not regulated. And it is the law we've just passed. It is before the president for assenting. So we tried our level best working with this law to make it better. Though we had some reservations for us in the opposition. I'm the Shadow Minister of Health, as you've said,
Yes.
so I lead the entire opposition on matters of health. So for us, we had some reservations. The reservations we had was that we wanted it to be a very strong law. This law was discussing 5 plants. These plants were prohibited, which is okay. But in this very law, there was a clause, clause 11, which was again opening up a window. This clause 11 was saying that the Minister of Health has powers to give you a license to cultivate these plants that were already prohibited within the law. So we said you can't prohibit and again give license. You can't do 2 things within the same law. So, and then for us, we never wanted any loophole for particular plants, like the one responsible for cocaine, the coca bush, the one responsible for opium. There were 2 varieties of opium. We never wanted any window. We never wanted to give minister any discretion to be able to allow somebody to cultivate those plants. So those are the reservations we had in this law, and we thought that if we had introduced 2 categories, the prohibited plants, which should be prohibited, and the controlled plants. Under controlled, yes, we can give the minister discretion to either allow one to cultivate or not. And with the controlled plants, we looked at the 5 plants and we were like, here we can only tolerate 1 plant. So under controlled, we can have 1 plant, but the rest should be completely prohibited. We thought we would make it stronger, but overall, Parliament is really concerned with issues of mental health. You know, recently we lost one of our own, a member of Parliament, at the same time a minister, who was shot dead by the bodyguard. And stories around that, of course, you would pick out easily that this bodyguard was stressed. There were allegations of money, allegations of this, that, but it would all inform you how the bodyguard was unable to contain pressures of the society. And this speaks directly to the mental health issues we are discussing. You get it? So how safe are other VIPs in the country, because they are also guarded by this category of people who earn almost the same salary. You get it? Now, moving out of that, how safe are our students in school, because they are also under stress. You get it? What are the figures of those committing suicide? Can we bring them down? Because what informs suicide is actually your mental health. If it is so poor, you can't value your own life. Now, if you can't value your own life, how will you value another person's life? So these are important issues that Parliament should discuss.
And did you come up with the figures of those that are, you know, looking at suicide as the only solution of getting out of the situation? Because again, like we were discussing, prolonged depression can lead to a number of things, suicide inclusive, and that is something that we cannot rule out. Yes.
Yeah, we've interacted with technical people. We've had a number of specialists, those from Butavika, various organizations. We've been informed on this number of suicide cases, and we are aware that it is even there in schools, both attempted and those that have been committed. And we know that actually mental health directly contributes to these cases. When it is high, the cases are high. So when you want to bring them down, we have to tackle issues of mental health. So as
And
Parliament,
so what is Parliament? Yes. What
yeah, as Parliament, of course, as I've said, that first and foremost, we are waiting for the law to regulate alcohol further. Alcohol has already been regulated, but regulate it further. Some of the steps we've taken, we used to have alcohol consumed in sachets, buveras. These are spirits, Uganda Waraj and all that. So we took measures to inconvenience the people consuming by asking, by demanding that alcohol should not be sold in buveras. It should be sold in certain packages, in bottles, and bottles of certain meals. By so doing, you reduce the number of people consuming these products and the time at which they consume. Somebody going for a meeting and has a sachet, you get it. So when you bottle it differently,
Exactly.
you discourage such tendencies.
And even at this time, you'll find some of these outlets are open.
Yeah,
And
now
someone can easily-
those are areas we are now going into, because already the area has been regulated, but we need to regulate it further because the outcome has not yet gotten to desired levels. So we need to press harder.
Also, the part of your regulations, sorry to cut you short, is the age limit of 18 to 21, where someone who is not 21 cannot consume alcohol. And we want to know, what difference does it make? Is it something that is going to actually see that alcohol abuse or alcohol use is mitigated?
Yeah, these are things that actually we shall discuss and get to know the responses from society. But we've had such discussions in other laws. For example, in the human donation and transplant law, we had a certain age where we required the parents' input, and that was about 21 years of age, that the parent should have an input, much as by law one who is above 18 is recognized to have capacity to decide on his or her own. But why we had the parents' input is because this age is normally under the control of the parent. They are normally in school, maybe university. When they get sick, it's the parent to take care of their medical bills, it's the parent managing their welfare, you know, feeding, treatment, and all of that, even accommodation. So we wanted the parents to have a say. Now, when it comes to the alcohol bill, we are still thinking pretty much the same, that these people are not really independent, in as much as the age of 18 is recognized that one should be independent, but they are not really independent. They are still dependent on the parents, and therefore we feel that we should tighten, because we did 18 and the results are not desirable. So if we shift it to 21, will it yield some good results? So these are things that are subject to discussions that we shall have. Of course, we have youth representatives in Parliament. These policies will be tabled. We shall debate, and the best side will win. Yes.
Okay, Dr. Kenneth, thank you so much, Honorable. Dr. Kenneth, I'd like us to talk about the access to mental health, both affordability, because like I earlier highlighted, therapy, or people even just talking about treatment of mental health, think it is, you know, way costly, and you find that it is some of, you know, the last person also has issues with mental health and they don't know how to go about it. So let's talk about the access to mental health services in Uganda.
Okay. So thanks for that question. As I started earlier on, and when I was talking about the structure or the mental health system in the country, we started from the community level. So talking about access, I'll talk about what is and maybe highlight a few challenges there as well. So sometimes related to your question, I would prefer looking at it as at a pyramid, that at the basis we start at community. So there are some basic services that should be available at community level. That means preventive services, and these services to identify and maybe provide low intensity psychological therapies for people with mental health issues, okay, at that level. Now, in terms of that, we have the VHTs as our structure, but the VHTs are a bit overwhelmed because they have many other roles to do. And so in terms of identification and providing services at that level, we are not doing so well at that point. That means there are patients coming in community and we are not identifying them early, and as such we're waiting for them to get complications before we start to treat them. So away from the community, no, not yet away from the community, we also have schools, okay? So schools also have a big population of people, or an organized community of sorts here. So we also, and we are happy that recently Minister of Education has identified the importance of the services, and they come in, I think there was a talk about having counselors in all the schools. But again, it has helped us open the conversation for the need for mental health services in schools and the communities. And we are engaging partners like Strong Minds and all the other partners as well to increase services at that level as well in schools and the communities. So once we go to the primary healthcare system, here we have primary healthcare workers, can be nurses, clinicians, you know, medical officers, and so on and so forth. The idea is that when I walk in the facility and I have multiple illnesses, including mental illness, the primary healthcare worker should be able to identify. What we don't have so well, or where we are not doing so well, is that many healthcare workers do not have the capacity to actually identify. So many mental illnesses go unnoticed. And you know, there is a thin line between physical health and psychological health. In that my mental health issues can present as a physical health problem, headache, backache, and so on and so forth. And so we need the primary healthcare workers to be able to identify, and that's where the gap is. And part of what we are doing is working to increase that. So building their capacity, in-service training, developing manuals, and again working with partners to ensure that we increase access at that level. Because if they are not identified in community and they are missed at primary healthcare level, that means by the time we are identifying them at tertiary level in Butabika Hospital or in the regional referral hospitals, that illness would be severe. And sometimes we get them with complications and so on and so forth.
Okay.
So in the regional referrals, all these regions have mental health units, the regional referral hospitals that serve that catchment area. So there is access in terms of treatment, and now over time we are increasing mental health professionals as well. Traditionally, mental illness has been treated using the medical model. That means using medicines to treat mental illness. But over time now we are expanding our capacity and increasing the scope of treatment to include talk therapy, for example, and to include other social treatments as well that can be provided.
Let's talk about thank you so much. Let's talk about funding from the government to this particular cause, mental health, because recently we ran a story where in Mbale 22% of the youth aged between 7 to 18 are actually taking on alcohol and substance abuse. And one of the issues that was highlighted was lack of funds in, you know, these facilities to actually help them deal with some of these issues. What is your take on that, Dr. Kenneth?
Yeah, so in relation to funding, and usually I like to approach mental health as a cross-cutting issue, you understand, and not only a Ministry of Health issue. So when you talk about funding, it should go across the board. So as Ministry of Health, there is an arbitrary amount that is allocated. We say mental health receives about 1% of the health budget for treatment. But you understand that even Ministry of Health is working below the budget that should, you know, and there are always conflicting priorities within the Ministry of Health. There is maternal and child health, there are all the others. So as a result, sometimes the priority does not come right. But I think it's because we are generally operating under a very constrained resource. But that said, mental health and mental health services are not only constrained to healthcare. So the majority of services actually should be non-health. Because as I mentioned, that about 1% of people only get mental illness, severe mental illness. The majority have mental health issues. And so services should be integrated. For example, Ministry of Gender, they should identify key options or solutions to the mental health issues and increase budget as well for them to support at community level. Okay, Ministry of Education, for example, most of our children spend their time in schools, and so they should identify and implement strategies that will improve mental health services within that level as well. And then at other levels, even workplaces, Ministry of Gender, you know, mental health is everywhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when we talk about budgeting, I think, and I'm glad that Honorable is here, we've had these conversations across. that we need increment in services. But first of all, we clearly need to identify which organization or which stakeholders can do what, and then we later advocate for increase in funding, such that ultimately we can improve access to quality mental health services.
I hope the Honorable will carry the voice forward. And I'd like to bring in Mr. Vincent to talk about the major reason why we're here, the World Mental Health Day, as of course we get to wrap up this conversation.
Yeah.
You did highlight that it is happening tomorrow?
It is happening tomorrow, the 31st of October. And the venue that has been set for the national celebration is Silver Springs Hotel. We are going to have a lot of activities, including a walk that is going to happen in the morning. People walking as one of the ways to demonstrate that mental health is not dealt with in the hospital. That it starts from doing the simple things in life, like taking care of yourself, doing the things that make you feel good. When you take a walk or join others to walk, you're not just dealing with your physical health, but it also contributes to your mental health.
Okay.
And amplifying the voice mainly to make mental health something that everyone thinks about when they reflect on their health. It's so important for us to know that the people that Dr. Kenneth Kalani is talking about as the main contributors to mental health problems, or the people that are struggling the most, they are in the workspace. They are in the markets down in town. They are your taxi driver, your border rider, and they are struggling with either depression or struggling with anxiety. And because mental health naturally has been stigmatized, they remain so hidden with their problem that they do not see the value to open up and seek help and receive it.
Thank you so much. I'll ask Honorable to give us the closing remarks as, of course, we conclude this conversation. What will be your closing remarks in regards to commemorating World Mental Health Day?
Mine is for various stakeholders to get on board and to evaluate what has been done and what needs to be done. In government, we've scattered money. That is from Parliament, we've scattered money. I remember when we had just emerged out of COVID-19, we gave some relief package, 100,000. It was called Nabanja money because families were stressed. Then, of course, their livelihood was distorted, so parish development model is coming in to fill that gap. So we need further guidance, whether what we are doing really aligns us or we need to do better. So we need an evaluation of what has been done, but we need mental health examination to be funded.
Okay.
That we shall see in this budget cycle.
Thank you so much. And lastly, the address, Strong Minds address, where can people find Strong Minds to access some of these services in a nutshell?
Well, Strong Minds works in 10 districts. Our head office is here in Kampala at Bugolobi, plot 31 Luthuli Rise, next to the Bugolobi flats. But we have presence in Kampala, Wakiso, Mukono. We have presence in Iganga, Mayuge, and Bugweri districts. We also are in the up northeast in Karamoja, in Kotido, in Mbale, targeting the Elgon region, and in the west in Barara, and in Gulu for the northern part of Uganda. So all those locations help us to reach out to people. We work with partners in the different refugee settlements.
Okay.
Window International working in Lamo and Adjumani, Afodi working with the settlement in Adjumani,
Okay.
and in Kanungu working with an organization called Impact.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Vincent Mujune, the Acting Director for Strong Minds Uganda. Also with us was Dr. Kenneth Kalani. He is the Senior Medical Officer in the Mental Health Division from the Ministry of Health. And also Honorable Timothy Batwa, Member of Parliament, Jinja West, Chairperson of the Budget Committee of Parliament, as well as a member of the Parliamentary Mental Health Forum, and also Shadow Minister of health. And you, as you have had the conversation, it is possible for you to actually keep your mental health okay, at check. All you have to do is to just do the right thing and also seek help. Do not die with your problems. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the conversation. I am Mildred Pedun. Have yourselves a good evening.
NTV, turning on your world.